I did take a while to write it, and that was because there's a lot of things in the book that I'm sure my father would disapprove of. He'd want to run his eye over every word that I put into it. But I can assure you that 99% of what's in there is actually what happened. And my father was a very complicated man. He was always coming up with these weird ideas, and he would push himself 100% into doing these things, and only he'd get the thing almost ready to go off the ground, and he'd walk away from it. Anyway, he was a rep for UBD, a country rep, and he started bringing home all these animals. He brought home little kangaroos, and he'd put them on formula. He'd lose some, he'd save some. He'd bring home wombats, he'd bring home echidnas. He turned our backyard at Arncliffe into an animal sanctuary, and I think that triggered something in him. It gave him a call, if you would, something that he could really put his teeth into. So he was at the time he was with the Kangaroo Protection Committee, and they came up with a plan to walk around Australia. So we collected all of these sponsors together, and one of these sponsors was Hanamex and Fujifilm. So every town that we walked into, we would either go to the post office, or we'd go to the, more than likely go to the chemist. And the chemist would be our rep in that town. And the chemist would allow us to shower, to give us a bed, give us a bit of civilization. But of course, the further we went around, and we walked around Australia anti-clockwise, the further we got. Once we hit, went through Adelaide and started going across to Ceduna, the towns get a long way apart, and Dad and I got rougher and rougher and rougher. And that's when really the fun started, because that's when the pressure came. That's when we didn't have comfortable beds to sleep in every 30 miles. We had to wait 300 miles to have that luxury. We also started to get on each other's nerves, because it was really only Dad and I. We settled into a routine. There were good days and there were bad days. There were days when we wouldn't even talk to each other. And there were other days where we might find a swimming hole, or we might find a patch of watermelon, and that would break the monotony. We almost came to blows on the Nullarbor, which is where the book starts, where Dad, unfortunately, he was a smoker like pretty much everybody back in those days. And I think he depended on the cigarettes to give him a sense of normality. Anyway, on the Nullarbor, he ran out of cigarettes. And that after 3 days, it ended up with me up a tree and Dad storming around the base saying, well, listen, mate, I need a cigarette, or you're going to have to come down here and fight me. We got through that. We went through Perth, up the west coast. Now it's about 2,000 miles of dirt roads from Perth to Kununurra. Very lonely. We went a whole day once without actually seeing another human being, which was something that you really couldn't comprehend now. What more can I say? We had run-ins with lots of animals. We were walking one night, because we used to walk at night because it was too hot during the day. So we'd get up at dawn, 15 minutes before the flies, have a quick bite to eat, have a cup of coffee, cup of tea for Dad, hit the road. Dad would have his rest between about 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and we'd walk deep into the night. Anyway, we got into past Kununurra, between Kununurra and Darwin. And one night we're walking along, and Dad says, "Oh, there's something on the road up there, Mark. Can you make it out?" And I couldn't make it out anyway. So Dad says, "You better stop." And he crawled around the back. He opened up the cart and he got out the old dolphin light, and he shone it on this creature, and it was the biggest water buffalo you'd ever seen. Now, our cart is roughly the same size as the buffalo. So there was this standoff, Mexican standoff, big buffalo looking at us. We had a dolphin torch, which was slowly losing its power, and we were at a loss what to do. We were lucky. Just as the last light from the torch went, we heard the delightful sound of a road train, and obviously the water buffalo knew what a road train was, because it quickly skipped off to the right-hand side of the road, and Dad and I started running. And it was only after we'd run about a mile that Dad said to me, hang on, we better rethink this, because who knows, we might just run into another one. We had to watch out for snakes. We had to watch out for redbacks. Redbacks seemed to be able to get into every nook and cranny. We we walked, as I said, we walked up the west coast. We came across the Fitzroy River. Now, this is the first decent body of water that we'd seen for 2,000 miles rather. So we went swimming, and we decided, well, we banked some days, so we decided to stay another day. Anyway, we stayed that day. The next one, on the morning, we were about to have breakfast and hit the road when this old couple of blokes come down, and they joined us for breakfast. And we said, all right, well, after breakfast, we said, okay, we better go and have one last swim. And the guy said to us, he said, listen, that's a really bad idea, because a guy was taken 3 miles down at the ford last week. And we said, taken, and what do you mean? He said, well, taken by a crocodile. And we both said in unison, what's a crocodile?